Welcome to Equip Podcast Project, Beyond Borders, Stories of Strength, Real Voices and Real Stories. My name is Ahmed.
My name is Marina.
This project is part of Refugee Week celebrations.
Here we explore the idea of community as a superpower by speaking with people who are actively supporting refugee and asylum seeker communities across Warwickshire.
It's my pleasure to introduce Last, a community leader, public health specialist and social scientist with nearly a decade of experience in social justice advocacy. She's the founder and CEO of the Inini initiative, a grassroots organisation supporting refugee and migrant communities. Her PhD research explores mental health access for Black sub-Saharan African migrants in England, focusing on the intersection of migration, mental health and social justice. Hi Last, thank you for joining us and being participating for Equip's podcast, Real Voices, Real Stories. I've not met you before, first time, so we can kickstart by you telling us a bit about your background and how you got into this type of work.
Okay, thank you, Ahmed, and thank you for having me. So my name is Last Mafuba. And I came to the UK in 2010. The reason I'm giving you this background is because it is my lived experience of going through the asylum process that moved me into the work that I do today. Yeah. This is why I started by saying I arrived in the UK in 2010 and was housed in a hostel in Liverpool, and from Liverpool I was sent to Birmingham to another hostel, and I ended up in Coventry. The reason I'm mentioning these hostels is it's because of my experiences in the hostels, where I was living with other asylum seekers, where I realized how difficult life was for everyone. It was much easier for myself because I could speak English, but the rest of the people who were there could not speak English. Some had young children, some still had bullets lodged in their bodies. And it was a very, very sad situation. And also about the challenges that I faced when my asylum was decided, which was quite quick for me. Within a month, I'd done the application, done the interview, and granted a refugee status. I started volunteering with Coventry Refugee and Migrant Centre and realized then that refugees that were accessing the centre were facing similar challenges that I'd faced, that I was facing, and those that were being faced by individuals in the hostels. So I just thought, you know what, I will start working with refugees, asylum seekers and migrants and support them because of the lived experience that I had and because I realized that the service that was there was not fit for purpose. So the work that I do is I work with asylum seekers, refugees and migrants.
Did you have any support at that time, or did you start on your own?
Support in terms of starting the organization.
Yes. Further support for asylum seekers and refugees.
I did had support. What I decided to do was to venture into mental health. Initially, I thought that this group doesn't understand. They lacked an awareness of what mental health was. They didn't know about mental illness because I'd had a mental breakdown in Liverpool. And when I was registering for the NHS support, they picked up that I was depressed, but I didn't realize that I was depressed. I was sad, yes, but I didn't look at it as depression. I didn't look at it as something that needed attention. So I was just pushing and pushing. So what came to my mind when I saw individuals continuing to struggle was they don't understand that they can get support for this. So I wanted to become a clinical psychologist and started working with these groups. That was my initial response. So I went and studied psychology, but realized getting into clinical psychology was not as easy. So, but whilst I was pondering what to do next, an opportunity came in, and I had a scholarship to study international development law and human rights, where I studied about migration, about refugees, realities, the laws and stuff about moving from the global south to the global north.
Yeah.
So it was when I was then researching for my thesis. My thesis looked into why recent female migrants experiencing domestic abuse do not engage the law, because I'd seen quite a number of women who were struggling.
Yeah.
They were experiencing domestic abuse, but they were not engaging the law.
Okay.
But so when I was doing that research, I realized the magnitude of mental illness within the migrant community.
Right.
The abusers were going through mental health issues. The abused were going through mental health issues. So that just reinforced the idea of starting my own organization to bring in that support for migrants. And I had support. I was studying at Warwick University, the University of Warwick, and they had a social enterprise department where somebody could support you to set up an organization. I tried working with them, but they just didn't understand what I was talking about. They couldn't. But I was so lucky. There was Voluntary Action Coventry. They had a program where they were supporting. They had a European fund, I think. They were supporting individuals who were setting up social enterprises. So they supported me to set up this enterprise. And the guy that I worked with is now working for Warwickshire Council, actually, in the migration team. It was just like he'd come into my head. He knew exactly what I was talking about. And he supported me to set up the organization.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have needed people at that particular time.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on what you've said, what would you say your superpower when it comes to helping others or handling challenges?
My superpower is community engagement. I am sort of like a magnet to individuals, particularly vulnerable individuals, and I realized this superpower when I was living in the hostels. I don't know whether it was because I could speak English. Many individuals were drawn to me when they wanted to ask something. So I just thought, the fact that I am able to let people relax and ask me stuff, even when they don't know me, it just means that I can do this work. And I've realized over the years that, yes, that's my superpower. I can engage smoothly and easily, and I'm trusted. Individuals trust me easily.
Awesome.
If you continue the superpower story, if your journey as a volunteer was a superpower story, what would your title be?
Oh God, that's a difficult one. I will say the title that is being used on me by, like, I was working with a group in Coventry and they called me Mother. When I started working with a group in Nuneaton, automatically they started calling me Mother. So I think I have this mothering instinct. And it doesn't matter whether I am working with older asylum seekers, refugees, migrants, or younger ones, they still call me mother. So I think I will keep that title, mother. Yeah.
That's so nice. So they feel protected when they are with you, like mother protects their children, and opened.
Yeah, I had one guy from the Nuneaton group send me a text onto my work phone, and he was describing why, when he first met me, all he could think of was his mom. He said to me, just looking at you, I just feel like you are my mom. I think of my mom. I miss my mom. So when I see you, I feel that warmth that comes from my mom, from you. So I feel, he's not the only person who's talked to me about. I've had individuals ring their mothers in Africa, for example, and asking me to speak to their mothers, and they were saying, I have a mom here, I want you to talk to her. Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So it's so touching.
Have you ever faced a challenge while supporting someone and found a way through it, and what happened?
I would say I face challenges all the time when supporting individuals, because each and every person has got different challenges, and each and every person, you cannot use the same solutions that you used on another person on this person.
Yeah.
It has to be person-centered. So I've faced challenges where at one point I was supporting this gentleman. He had comorbidities, where he was HIV positive and was taking medication for HIV, and he'd developed cataracts in his eyes where he couldn't see, and he was living in dispersal accommodation, and his section 4 had been refused. But what the housing officer would do, they were evicting him.
Yeah.
But they would just come and leave the letters. You know how they leave the letters downstairs?
Yeah.
They just kept leaving the letters downstairs. But obviously he can't see.
No.
And he didn't even know he was being evicted because there was no interaction. So eventually somebody rang me and told me about his situation.
Yeah.
And I went to see him. The challenge was, where does he go now?
Yeah.
What's the next step? Because obviously we as Inini, we don't have an accommodation.
Yeah.
And but it worked out well in the end.
Okay.
We went to the council because he had been in hospital.
Yeah.
He went into no. He was meant to go into hospital to have his cataracts removed.
Yeah.
But the hospital was saying, we are not going to do this until we know you've got somewhere to stay, somewhere permanent, more permanent for you to stay, then we'll do the operation. Otherwise, we can't do the operation. And Section 117 aftercare says you need to go into hospital, isn't it? If you're coming out of hospital, then the council is mandated to look after you. But we worked it out with the council. Eventually, they put him into supported accommodation.
Right, okay.
Yeah, where he's still living today. I think this is 4 or 5 years later. And he's had his operations, he's there, he's got support. He now have people who come in to look after him. It worked out well in the end. Yeah. Yeah.
Last, you're always there for those who ask you for help and that come to you. What would be your understanding of a community, of a strong community? What would be the perfect community for you?
The perfect community for me as someone who's come out of Africa, originally I am from Zimbabwe, and I know for most African countries, the reason I keep referring to Africa is because for some reason, the individuals that I work with, 90% of them are coming from Africa. And I would say in Warwickshire, 100% are coming from Africa. So the African culture is such that it's a collective. They live as a community. An individual is interlinked to their community. They cannot be standalone. So it comes when we talk about mental health, when we talk about well-being, it has to be through the community. This is why you find in the work that we do, everywhere, Coventry, Nuneaton, Warwick, we work for, we focus on building peer support groups. Yeah. And by building peer support groups, what we are doing is we are building our community. Because these individuals come from a community. And also because through experience, because of particularly mental health, because of the stigma that's there, I realized that people were being detained in hospital for their mental health. And when they come back, the community didn't know how to deal with it. And that individual would disengage from services, disengage from Inini, and because they are now isolated, they end up going back into hospital. They relapse. So the reason now what we do within the peer support groups is we do mental health training, and this is to educate the community. So if the community is educated, because recovery is also, it happens through the community, because these individuals are used to being a collective. Yeah. So now that the communities understand about mental illness, they understand how to look after, how to identify mental illness within themselves, within others, and how to support others. This is what we teach them, how to support themselves, how to support others as well. It becomes easier. So a community that I would want to see is more like a community where individuals feel like they belong, where there is no fear, where it is a just society, where they can be themselves, where they are not excluded from stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So you created a platform for your community, in essence.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You will find that even for guys that are just coming in, and I think because of the journeys that they make and how they get here, they form clusters and groups, and they could be bad vibes between groups. So it's a matter of teaching them that you don't need that. You need each other. You need to be supporting one another at this point. So it's just to diffuse all the tensions that are there within the community. So they work as a collective. Yeah.
Because it's a new dynamic for them over here, right, to do that. But then you're there to teach them that.
It is quite a new dynamic, and also because of the way the journeys are done, the system just teaches you to do stuff that you know, even when you know they are wrong, but it's survival of the fittest. That's what the system teaches you. But we teach them that it's not survival of the fittest. It's survival for the collective. It takes a whole village. It takes all of us to survive in this country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the saying goes, it takes a whole village to raise a child.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So is there a piece of advice or wisdom that you've gained through volunteering that you'd like to share?
I would say a piece of advice that I gained through volunteering is more like, for myself, I've been humbled by the people that I support.
Okay.
And I think my healing has come through them. It's not just me giving.
Yeah.
I've received a lot out of the groups that I support. Just the joys of being amongst them. Particularly in Coventry, there's the numbers or the groups that I work with are undocumented. And some of them have been here 20, 23, 25 years. And where you work with somebody who has been around for over 20 years and they come back and tell you, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I've been given 2.5 years. So the joy that gives you is just amazing.
Yeah.
So I've learned that in giving, you also receive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be good for the soul.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you could give a message to future volunteers, what that message would be?
The message would be, don't hesitate to give. Don't hesitate to volunteer. It's quite an emotional experience. Where I'm sure you understand, working with this group, it is quite emotional because it's all different sad stories most of the time. Sad. There are times when you go into, for me, most of the time I'm going into meetings. It's like I have to I'm going into combat.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad, but it's rewarding. So don't hold back. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's doable. Yeah. But one thing I ought to say is it's not for everyone. This kind of work is not for everyone. If you can't do it, you can't, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person, because like the amount of emotional something that you need to do this work, you have to, it takes a special kind of people. So if you can't do that, it's okay. Or you can volunteer in other areas and not this one. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, thank you so much, Lass, for coming here and sharing your story and your insight about what you do. Really appreciate it. I mean, just by listening to that, I mean, it's overwhelming. I wish I could do what you're doing.
Thank you.
You must be a pillar of your own community, and I'm sure the audience that listen to this podcast, you know, gets a deeper feeling in terms of what you do.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I am the mother.
Yeah, you are. And again, with what you said, I can clearly see that.
Yeah.
People call you a mother.
I am the mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your stories and your points of view. That was very inspiring.
Oh, thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.